you, Dylan. Good morning. I'm Karen Finkenberg, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm the worship associate this morning, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Huntington, which we also call UUFH. Hello to those of you who are watching on Zoom or later on YouTube. I'd like to extend a special welcome today to newcomers. If you are new to our congregation and want to speak with someone to learn more about us, please visit our welcome table in the social hall or speak to one of the greeters you met on the way in. Today is the 7th of our summer Sunday service series. We have an intriguing array of speakers all summer, including UUFH members, community leaders, and today a guest minister. Before you leave today, pick up the flyer in the back of the room or look for it on our website at uufh.org. As we settle into worship, know that whoever you are, whomever you love, and wherever you are in your life's journey, you are welcome here. Our guest speaker today is Reverend Ben Borton. Reverend Ben Borton currently serves as minister at the North Fork UU Fellowship in Jamesport. He has also served as minister at the First Unitarian Church of Duluth, Minnesota, and the UU Congregation of Staten Island. For 12 years, he was the membership and volunteer coordinator for the UU congregation at Shelter Rock. He's taught religions of the world at St. John's University and served as hospital chaplain with the Northwell system. His community involvements include serving on the board of Project Hospitality, serving homeless people on Staten Island, a UU representative to the Religious Coalition for Abortion Rights, and president of the UU United Nations office.
The flaming chalice, as many of you know, is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism and of the UU Service Committee. We kindle the flame of our faith in the cup of our covenant. And I appreciate Karen lighting the chalice this morning for freedom. Freedom which, like this flame, burns brightly for all to see who can and enjoy, but which also is fragile, easy to snuff out. Freedom for those blessed with it is too easily taken for granted. Let this chalice be a reminder of how freedom is as precious as it is fragile, to safeguard it where it exists, and to enable it to be achieved where it yet does not.
Please join me in saying aloud our mission statement. The words will be on the screen. In religious community, we nurture our individual spirits through caring for one another and helping to heal the world. Please stand as you are able and join in singing hymn number 151 in the gray hymnal, I Wish I Knew How. Words and music by Billy Taylor and Dick Dallas. The words will be on the screen.
I wish I could say
For this time, our moments of the heart, you are invited to light a candle for something deep in your heart. Mary Bly, today's pastoral care associate, will join us at the candles in the front and has a basket for cards for joys and concerns you'd like shared with the congregation. She also has blank cards and pens if you'd like to write something now. Please be mindful to only share your own news, share with permission, or to share without names. As the music plays, I invite you to come forward or go to the candle table in the back. Please hold in your thoughts John Andrew Kay, brother of Pat Keeley, who is having surgery. For the people of Ukraine, whose future hangs by a thread. For all Americans, many of whom are troubled by the policies of our government, may the hate and anger subside. I am beside myself with outrage at the irresponsibility of my country's leadership yet again this week. Hope and pray for political leadership. I'm happy to share in the celebration of the new Welcome Native Garden this week. Please all come. And then I've been asked to read today's Doonesbury. I dropped by to visit Aunt June today. Her caregiver stopped coming in and her fridge was empty. And the wife is making a salad and the husband's reading the newspaper. So I went to get her some produce at the farm stand, but it was closed in the middle of the summer. So I swung by the cafe to get her dinner, but I took an hour. They only had one cook on, so weird. Then on my way home, I saw that the hedges along the lane still haven't been trimmed. Have you noticed? I have, says the husband. And she's looking rather perturbed, and he's still reading the paper. And then she says, I wonder what's going on. And he says, it'll come to you. Great Spirit of life, Spirit of love, God of many names and no names, come unto us, for we know not what to do about the many heartbreaking conflicts and wars around this world. We know not what to do for all those who are suffering. Sing in our hearts all the stirrings of compassion, compassion for the oppressed, for those who are scared and hurting, compassion for those who are sick and in pain. Blow in the wind, rise in the seas. May we listen to the stirrings of our earth and together protect our beautiful planet that holds and nourishes us. Move in our hands so we may give life to the shape of justice, that all may experience equity, freedom, and dignity. Roots hold us close so we may feel a connection to this earth and to one another, interconnected in all. Wings set us free so we may soar with inspiration, creativity, and vision. Spirit of life, come to us so we may be whole and live lives of value and purpose. Amen. Please join in singing Spirit of Life. The words will be on the screen.
It is a delight and honor to be with you again today. I thank you very much, Karen Finkenberg, who I've had the pleasure of knowing over 5-6 years, for your gracious introduction. It's grand to see Jack and Karen again. Also, a delight to see various friends from the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock who are with us this morning. And to all who are on Zoom, also a great pleasure so far, and it will continue to collaborate with the musician of this congregation, Dylan DeFeo. Thank you so much, sir. I'm also pleased to see that there are people under the age of 10 in the room. And I invite them to come forward for a special story. If you just sit over here and I'll stand with you. Although the rest of you are welcome to listen to the story. But adults may come forward if accompanied by a child. Maybe just up a bit, and I won't hold it so I can hold it. Well, good morning, Henry, and I'm Ben. And by the way, if any other children want to come up later, that's allowed too. Good. Okay. Henry, first a question. Can you think of any? You're welcome to sit down. I have to stand up to be near this piece of technology. Can you think of any holidays? What would be a holiday that you enjoy any time of year? Christmas? Is there a summer holiday you can think of? Well, fireworks? 4th of July, right? And there's one that involves rabbits, eggs. Easter, got it. And then there's some Jewish holidays too. Do you know about Passover? It's about the same time, but there's a big dinner, and you hide a cracker that tastes really bland called matzah, and then we have to give you a gift for you to tell us where it is. Anyway, this is another holiday that's really more recent, called Juneteenth. Have you ever, you know what that is? What happened on Juneteenth? Well, it's hard to remember, but it's really important. Up to then, children and adults, many of them in this country, had to wear chains and work hard all day. He freed the slaves and told the slaves they were free, because a year and a half earlier they were free, but they didn't know it, so the owners kept on with them. So I'll just read a little bit of this story. You can come up if you want, because the pictures are really pretty. A June morning breeze off the port blew the smell of honeysuckle past the fields across the yard and into our room to wake us. And nobody knew, as we ate a little, talked a little, and headed to the fields, that soon it would all be different. So we worked and worked and worked some more. What is this? It's cotton, right? Good. Under the hot Texas sun, until people began talking. And they whispered to each other, and then others whispered to others that we were now going to be what? Free. He said it to me. I could hear Henry. Yes, and I laughed, and my Aunt Laura sang, and a group of people bowed their heads and whispered to each other. And we're going to cut the story a little short, but we knew everything was different before, and we danced and sang into the night. So that was on June 19th. Thank you, Henrik, and all of you for hearing about this very important day.
This reading is by Langston Hughes, chosen by Reverend Borton Ben. I know he's a big fan of Langston Hughes. I'm not surprised to see it show up in the service today. It's entitled Freedom. Freedom will not come today, this year, nor ever, through compromise and fear. I have as much right as the other fellow to stand on my 2 feet and own the land. I tire so of hearing people say, let things take their course. Tomorrow is another day. I do not need my freedom when I'm dead. I cannot live on tomorrow's bread. Freedom is a strong seed planted in a great need. I live here, too. I want my freedom, just as you.
Over a span of about 450 years, Unitarianism and Universalism have been characterized by an F word: freedom. The most fundamental of all Unitarian Universalist principles, says the late Jack Mendelson in his book, Being Liberal in an Illiberal Age, is personal freedom of belief, the principle of the free mind. When I think of freedom, somehow a scene from Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea comes to mind. That well-known author was ahead of his time technologically. Submarines were not in use or known about in 1869, when he began writing the novel. In the scene that affected me, the occupants of the submarine, the Nautilus, are trapped under 6,000 cubic yards of ice. Oxygen is becoming rarer by the minute. Such air as does exist in the vessel is full of carbonic acid, very unpleasant at best, in fact dangerous to breathe. And the passengers ration what little moderately clear air they have from a small tank and begin chipping away with pickaxes at the colossal block of ice that is entrapping the submarine. But very little gets chipped away. The entire job looks like more than a week of work, and the group have 48 hours of oxygen of any kind remaining. The main character says it all in describing himself. My face was purple, my lips were blue, my faculties suspended. I neither saw nor heard. All notion of time had gone from my mind. My muscles could not contract. But that seemingly futile ice chopping, along with the sending of some boiling water towards the frozen hulk, and a last-ditch burst of energy, caused the vessel to break through. The final surface plane of ice, suddenly pure, uncontaminated air poured into the vessel in unlimited quantities. Nobody needed to share it or spare it. And with that came a basic freedom, the freedom to breathe, which in turn meant the freedom to live. I found that personally very affecting because every autumn I would develop some kind of bronchial condition. It didn't bother me except when I tried to breathe. And then I would face a little wall of reminder. And I went to the dentist, of all places, unrelated, so it seemed, and needed a procedure that involved an antibiotic. And 2 days later, I realized I'm not having breathing problems anymore. I am taking a medication for something else that gave me the freedom to breathe comfortably and happily. And I realize what we take for granted is sometimes such a blessing, and we don't realize it until we lose it. The story was about Juneteenth. That's a different kind of freedom. Last spring, I had the privilege of visiting the Harriet Tubman Museum and Home in southern Maryland, and I strongly recommend you go there if you are traveling in that area. I hope to high heaven it won't be sanitized and censured by current powers that be, that it will tell the story as it accurately should be told. But before I got there, I had read Harriet Tubman's words when she was first told she was in Pennsylvania, where slavery was banned. She said, "When I found I had crossed that state line, I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. There was such a glory over everything. The sun came like gold through the trees and over the fields, and I felt like I was in heaven." So, as I say, I was at Harriet Tubman's home where she grew up enslaved in Cambridge, Maryland, well south of Baltimore, not too far from the Virginia border. Saw the little house where a slave overseer had thrown a heavy iron weight that hit Harriet Tubman in the head and caused her seizures and headaches and sleeping spells the rest of her life. And yet that didn't stop her from taking a more than 100-mile trip with no GPS, only the North Star, to freedom. And not only that, she came back 12 times to rescue 70 other people and likewise liberate them. I think the 2019 movie Harriet should be shown in every school throughout the land. That probably is not what the current Department of Education has in mind, however. More about that in a moment. But we should note what I learned in the process of researching freedom, that according to the International Labor Organization, an estimated 40 million people in this world are subjected to some form of slavery, including forced labor and forced marriage. To my mind, some of our proudest moments as Unitarians and Universalists were when we spoke and acted against slavery. Theodore Parker, the great Unitarian minister in Boston, engaging in civil disobedience, hiding Anthony Burns so he wouldn't be kidnapped and sent back to slavery under the Fugitive Slave Act. Somebody who will not be known to history, Sidney Gay, but he was a member of the Staten Island Unitarian congregation, not at the same time that I served there, about 100 years earlier, was a lawyer but refused to practice law in a country that supported slavery, and one day lifted up the tablecloth of the table in his living room to show his wife two people who had escaped slavery in the South. His home was a stop on the Underground Railroad. Returning to Unitarian Universalism itself, we have a distinctive form of freedom in our approach, spiritual freedom. You do not sign at anyone else's spiritual dotted line. and no religious hierarch or inflexible creed is going to determine what you believe. So some then ask, so you don't have any beliefs? As one of my uncles said to me, and I still remember it decades later, Unitarians don't believe in anything. He didn't go to the length of that unwieldy but accurate name, Unitarian Universalist. Or alternatively, people ask quite innocently the opposite question. So you can believe anything you want? The answer is no to both questions. First, as to having no beliefs. Amid our wonderful diversity, we do have cherished beliefs in common, only we prefer to call them values or purposes and principles. Despite our wonderful diversity, we do not accept any outlook that is at odds with inherent and universal human worth and dignity. And in our freedom, we are guided by certain cherished values. Not only a commitment to universal human worth, but to truth-seeking, to ethical action, to a world at peace with liberty and justice for all, to democratic governance, to safeguarding nature's interdependent web, of which we are a part. Now, how does that turn into an elevator speech? You've been asked, I guess, if you had to give the elevator speech about Unitarian Universalism, what would it be? You know, that means you're in an elevator and someone says to you, Unitarian, what is that? Well, if the elevator is only going one floor, my answer is we believe in the free mind and the caring heart. If the elevator is going a bit farther, like up to the observation deck of the Empire State Building, I might use another phrase we hear quite a bit, but I think it's valid. Good deeds rather than creeds. We are at a religious approach that expresses our deeply held beliefs in action that helps human beings. And sometimes it's very courageous action. Like the people who hid runaway slaves on the Underground Railroad, like Waitstill and Martha Sharp, who rescued more than 1,000 people from Nazism. And like the Unitarian Universalist congregation at Shelter Rock, do you know it gives $12 million a year to assist and empower socially and economically disadvantaged human beings around the country and in times of calamity in other parts of the world? So some might say, well, yeah, but you believe all that. Why do you say your freedom to be different with one another? But we do possess remarkable diversity in our religious movement. There are Jewish Unitarian Universalists. I count myself one. Unitarian Universalist Christians. Unitarian Universalist humanists. I count myself one. Pagan Unitarian Universalists. I personally know Hindu Unitarian Universalists and at least one Muslim Unitarian Universalist. And our hymn books, as you know, at the end of the book contain readings from myriad religious traditions, each like different colors of stained glass in a window, casting its own inspired meaning and perspective on our search for religious truth. We regard diversity not as a threat, but as a gift. In other words, we believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Or, as the earliest Unitarian minister of whom I'm aware, Francis David, in the late 1550s, expressed it, you do not need to think alike to love alike. Our commitment to one another as human beings, our commitment to one another in a caring religious community or congregation, does not depend on theological uniformity. Well, then, if the elevator still hasn't gotten all the way up, I guess it's several trips up and down the Empire State Building now. But a very common question, we need to be ready for it. I say we, Unitarian Universalists. What about God? What do you guys believe about God? The answer is, no one's going to tell you what you should believe about that timeless question and mystery of God. There are diverse answers, and answers that are meaningful to you are what you can accept as your answer. For some, God is a source of comfort. I know when I worked as a chaplain at various hospitals in Long Island and in Queens, when someone's severely ill, that person more often than not does depend on what that person calls God as a source of comfort. And I want to honor that. For others like me, God is more meaningful, is most meaningful in the form of love between human beings, or in bringing joy to a child, or in the sunset over Manhasset Bay, or in the music of Bach, or the music we heard this morning. Or I like what Mahatma Gandhi said, to the hungry person, God is a piece of bread. Back on the issue of freedom, I think it's more important that in Transylvania in the mid-1500s, not that Unitarianism started, but that it was the first country of size in the Western world to declare freedom of religious belief and persuasion. The only Unitarian king I know of in history, King John Sigismund, declared in 1568, "No one shall be made to suffer on account of religion." By the way, that Transylvania is the home of Count Dracula, but I don't know of any evidence that Count Dracula was a Unitarian. At that time, though, mid-1500s, remember the Spanish Inquisition was at its height, torturing Jews, Muslims, and Protestants. Queen Elizabeth was in turn persecuting Roman Catholics. Pogroms were ongoing against Jews. Persecution around the world continued for hundreds of years and to this day. We are concerned as Unitarian Universalists about free exercise of religion, but that's closely related to other freedoms. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to nonviolent dissent, freedom to peaceably assemble, the right to free and fair elections, the presumption of innocence when charged with a crime. I list all of those because I am deeply concerned about the state and fate of freedom in our great country now, for several reasons. First, we have countenanced the specter of censorship at institutions of higher learning, whereby if points of view are expressed by certain students, they are faced with deportation, where if allowing them to speak is in some way, shape, or form permitted, then grants for critical medical research can be denied by orders of the current presidential administration, so that Columbia University, Brown University have paid millions of dollars to the current government so that medical research, among other practices vital to human knowledge, can continue. And the curbing of free speech and education doesn't stop there. We had the story about Juneteenth. The Florida State Board of Education released a history standard about the issue of slavery, that it was beneficial, the slave trade, to African Americans, because slaves developed skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Imagine being an African American student and being treated to that kind of nonsense. Any of us, irrespective of race, subjected to that kind of out-and-out erasure of history. It doesn't stop there. You've heard about banned books. The American Library Association reports that in 2024, 2,452 books from public libraries were banned last year, 4,231 books banned from public schools. And when I read a sampling list of books that had been banned, I thought I was looking at a high school English class reading list. Here are some of them: To Kill a Mockingbird, Huckleberry Finn, Of Mice and Men, Beloved by Toni Morrison, Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl, and apparently for younger children too, Charlotte's Web is not permitted. And of course, any book that deals with the LGBTQ plus experience is suspect in many parts of the country and not allowed. How does that make a gay or trans child feel? And of course, there's the financial nudging of companies. That's how we lost in the next year Stephen Colbert. There's another form of censorship that comes from the grassroots that's very deeply concerning, and that is the use by people of death threats online, over the phone, because of what someone thinks or says. Threatening someone's life and that of someone's family is officially illegal in this country. It is not, according to the American Civil Liberties Union, protected speech. There's a news article recently that judges in the Pacific Northwest have been especially targeted with fatal threats. And there are two more arenas in this country where the torch of freedom needs to shine light. One of them pertains to being charged with a crime. Going back to our forebears in Great Britain, you are presumed to be innocent unless and until convicted as a guilty person by a jury of peers. And that is not just a provision in our country for citizens, for any person who happens to be in this country. That is a legal requirement. But as you know, we are witnessing people seized at workplaces, at parking lots, by masked armed agents, handcuffed, thrown to the ground, placed in prisons, whereabouts undisclosed, even to immediate family, being denied a lawyer, being denied a phone call. And who are these people? Are they, as the Nassau County Commissioner Bruce Blakeman says, members of MS-13, a violent gang? Well, I don't think so. Not the manager of Bagel Nosh in Port Washington, who has managed it for nearly 20 years. and a landscaper in Pasadena, California, whose 3 sons all served in the United States Marine Corps. He was picked up and arrested. An honor student from Korea, whose mother was the first Korean priest in the New York City Episcopal Diocese. This approach is not one of democracy. It is the stuff of dictatorships, and we are keenly concerned about that, those of us who are believers in freedom. But there's another cornerstone of democracy, which is the political incarnation, I would say, of freedom, and that is the concept of government by consent of the governed. This summer was the 60th anniversary of a great event, the signing of the Voting Rights Act by President Lyndon Johnson. The culmination of years of nonviolent organizing by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis and others. And that signing enabled millions of Black Americans to vote for the first time in this country. But there are ways to have people vote and then it not be a vote, just magic. And one of them is called gerrymandering, or to be more euphemistic, redistricting, so that people can vote, but it's carefully engineered that the will of their vote is not honored in the outcome of the election. I really salute and support those legislators from Texas who broke the quorum and said, we're not going to accept that kind of anti-democratic shenanigan. And the effect of their witness caused other people to realize around the country, notably Governor Gavin Newsom of California, this event is not a Texas issue only. It is our national democracy at stake. We must remind ourselves that though we are in trying times, or as Rachel Maddow put it, we're not moving toward a difficult era, we are already in it, that human beings have been through much worse and have nonetheless maintained their commitment to make matters better for human beings and to let freedom prevail. Like Harriet Tubman and the enslavement that she escaped, like Waitstill and Martha Sharp, who resisted Nazi tyranny, and when they were over in Europe, it was better than many spy novels. They escaped death a number of times, just by ingenuity and by seconds. But beyond these brave, death-defying, inspired gestures, there is no minimizing how important our own quiet actions can be. Our presence at rallies that joins the presence of tens of thousands of others. Our letters in support of freedom. And I've made it a resolve to write to people whose actions I approve and show them their support out among the constituents. In our own ways, in our own little corners, and on issues of deep personal meaning, we can carry the torch of freedom. We are in dark times, but we are not, in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s words, in a starless midnight. As the hymn tells us, we must let this little light of ours shine. And with consistent, persistent, and insistent efforts, we can protect liberty and justice for all and offer support for one another in that endeavor. Weeping may endure for a night, said Psalm 30, but joy can cometh in the morning. As with the passengers on Jules Verne's Nautilus, we can, we must, and we will breathe the sweet air of freedom again. In the days, weeks, and months, and years ahead, let us keep hope alive, and let us keep the torch of freedom brightly lit. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Each week, we have an offering for our split plate program. That means that undesignated donations are split between the UUFH and our charity of the month, unless you indicate otherwise. This month, we're supporting Engage Long Island, which was originally created as Long Islanders for Gun Safety in response to the tragedy in Parkland. They relaunched as Engage Long Island to better reflect their broader mission and goals. They mobilized volunteers to stand up for vulnerable communities and shared progressive ideals. As upstanders, they engage with voters, advocate on issues such as gun violence protection, reproductive freedom, protecting democracy, and LGBTQ+ rights. And serve our communities. Some of their recent initiatives and events which have required funding include painted canvas tote bags filled with toiletries for Jericho Cares, North Shore Soup Kitchen, and New Immigrant Mothers, and blanket making for Long Island Coalition for the Homeless, among other initiatives. Ushers will be passing baskets while Dylan plays. For those of you at home, you can send a check to the office or donate through the website, Zelle, or PayPal. Thank you all for your support of the work we do within and beyond these walls.